Mike Pachelli here. For this lesson, I'll be talking about the Beatles recording of Back in the U.S.S.R. that they did in August of 1968. Now, it was written in India when the Beatles were on a retreat learning transcendental meditation from the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi Bear. And Paul said it's a tongue-in-cheek spoof on Chuck Berry's Back in the USA. It's about a Russian spy who's been in America too long and he's glad to be back home. Paul played it at breakfast in India for Mike Love of the Beach Boys, and it was Mike Love who suggested Paul, add something about the Russian girls, like the Beach Boys song California Girls. They first demoed it on May 28th at George's house, and all the Beatles were there to show songs that they had written in India, and that demo was mostly Paul playing everything. But in August 22nd, they're at EMI Studio 2, and they're there to, firstly attempt to get the song recorded properly. Ringo, as usual, has to wait for hours for the rest of the band to come, reading newspapers and hanging out, and apparently that was the modus operandi. Paul has said that, "I'm sure it pissed Ringo off when he couldn't quite get the drums to Back in the U.S.S.R., and I sat in." In Ringo's book, Postcards from the Boys, he says, "Every time I went for a cup of tea, Paul was on the drums." Well, Paul was showing Ringo how he wanted the drums to be played in Back in the U.S.S.R., and McCartney was criticizing Ringo for messing up the tom-tom fills, so Ringo quits the band. So they decided to record without Ringo. Now, originally, the instrumental track is recorded in the key of G at a slower tempo. They first start doing it, it's Paul on guitar, with George just hitting a snare drum and John strumming a 6-string bass. But they eventually decide to have Paul play drums, George do a choppy rhythm on electric, and John again on that 6-string bass. They do that 5 times, and take 5 was the keeper. Then the next day on August 23rd, they do overdubs. Paul overdubs piano and lead guitar and some more bass. George does more snare drum. He does some drum fill, and George does bass. There's actually 2 basses on the song when you listen to the final master. And John plays a rhythm guitar, and he also overdubs some tom-tom fills, and all 3 of them overdub hand claps. So now 4 tracks are filled, and they need to do a reduction mix to a new tape. And again, the song's in the key of G, so they play the song faster to make it in the key of A, and Paul does his best Jerry Lee Lewis vocal, and he does a great job. They also had Paul double track some of that lead vocal, and John, Paul, and George did the Beach Boys type harmonies. They mixed it on October 13th, and they used the sound of a turboprop taking off and landing for the beginning and the end. They inserted within the song also. The song was released on November 25th, 1968 on the Beatles' White Album, and that was the first Beatles album to be on the Apple Records label. So I think that's the backstory. Let's get started. In order to play Back in the U.S.S.R., you'll need 3 guitar parts. And though there's no definitive way to know who played what because there's so many overdubs in the song, I'm guessing dollars to donuts that this first rhythm part was played by John Lennon. So I'm going to use my Epiphone Casino, and I'm going through a Fender Deluxe Reverb, because they used a lot of Fenders back in those days, and everything's just on 3 on my Deluxe Reverb to get the tone. So you're going to need these chords to play the song. You'll need an A7, voiced like this. You'll need a D7, a C7. You're also going to need an E7 voiced like this, and a D7 voiced like this. And sometimes it's just, root fifth, like power chords, like power A, power C, power D, with some rocking, making the 5th to the 6th. You'll need some of that. And also once or twice on the, you'll need a D like this, chromatic, to the E. I think those are all the chords. So, when this part first starts, you voice this E7, and you kind of pound in 8th notes, from low to high. So you start with the bottom 2 strings and play in 8th notes. add the fourth string, add the third string, and add the second string. And you're into the verse. Now on the verse, the rhythm is like this. It's 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4. It's really just loosely strummed, but that's basically the rhythm. So very slowly on the A7 chord, it would be same pattern on the D, same thing on the C, back up to the D. Repeat that. Now on the walk up, it changes. It's 1 and 2 and 4. So on the A, and then on this D, the rhythm is all eighth notes and pretty much played downstroking, like back down to an A, then this D7 chromatic up. So in tempo, help me out, Ringo. Here's how the first two verses would sound, and the intro. 2, 3, 4. So after the second verse, there's the breakdown, you know, back in the U.S., back in the U.S., da-da-da-da-da. He comes back in rocking, just rocking, you know, root fifth of A, like this. And then we're to the bridge. Now on the bridge, you go up to the D7 chord and play in eighth notes, but play the low strings and then all 4 or 5 strings, like. Then rock the A. Then in fifths, chromatic from D to B in quarter notes. Then get your E7. This time, just bars, root and fifths. All right, and then you're to the solo section. Or should I do the bridge? Let me do the bridge for you one time. There you go. The bridge. You know, back in the U.S., back in the U.S., back in the U.S.S.R. And we're at the solo. Now during the solo section, this rhythm part plays a little bit less, just kind of a simple syncopation in quarter notes, eighth notes, like this. Repeats. And then the build-up, same as the other one, pretty close. 3, 4. All right, now on the second bridge, this rhythm part is a little different. It's kind of it's eighth notes with eighth note scratching. It's like. Now on this A7, you play the top part of the A7, then the low parts. And then a wild, very John Lennon A7, probably in 16th notes, like. And then chromatic down, eighth notes and quarter notes. E7, kind of really bravado on this part, very loose here, like. Bar chords. So I think I should do that second bridge for you in time. Be easy to understand. Here's the second bridge. 1, 2. And that's that. Then you're into the last verse. Now, in the last verse, it's kind of loose variations of what we've already learned. Very loose on the normal rhythm parts, which was played that pretty straight, but again, on the record, it's pretty loose. And then up to the build, again, low to high, but more 16th notes this time. It's like and then on this D, he plays he completely different. It's like, and then the just root fifths kind of crazily, like 3 and 4 and. Slid into the root fourth, back down to and then let's see, is it? Yeah, it's oops. All right, I guess I'll do that verse for you, last verse 3, so you get a better vibe of what I'm trying to teach. It'd be like this: 2, 3, 4. And then at the very end, this rhythm guitar just simply plays eighth notes, and it's this rhythm. It's charts and tabs at MikePachelli.com, which will show it a lot clearer than I've probably just demonstrated, and that's where you can download it if you so desire. But that's the first rhythm part of Back in the U.S.S.R. This second rhythm guitar part is a lot simpler, and it sounds more like what George Harrison would have played. So I'm using Les Paul, again, still going through my deluxe reverb. For the chords of the second rhythm part, it's pretty much root fifth, the kind of Chuck Berry rocking. So on an A, it looks like this. And then you rock it, moving that E to an F sharp. Those kind of things. Same thing with the D. And on the C. And you also need the D here, chromatic up. All right, and probably, moving down that thing. But we'll get to that in a minute. The second rhythm guitar part doesn't start until a verse. And on a verse, it's just that Chuck Berry rock and roll thing in eighth notes. So where you play. Now, for this part, this would have been overdubbed, most likely by George, and the part would be... Again, he's playing it in G, but we're going to play in A. So you play an A, G, F sharp, and then 16-note triplets, 2 of them. See that? Then you move that up a minor third, and you'd be playing the same kind of basic lick in C, but just eighth note. Don't do the triplets there, and then move it up a whole step, and you're playing like D, and use those 16th note triplets again. So that whole part slowly is. And that's for the build-up. And then after that, just a regular straight rock and roller. And then, so I'll play you this rhythm part in time, starting on a verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple part, but if you listen closely in that terrible mix, you can hear this is happening, and it's important to keep the song driving along. So after verse 2 and the break, he again just plays, you know, a straight. This time doubling up on the 6. And then you're into the bridge. Now for the bridge, you're up to D again, just straight rock and roll Chuck Berry like this. But when he goes down to the A, double on the 6th. Then move those down chromatically in 8th notes. Oh, and then here he plays the regular E7 like that, all downstrokes to a D7. Back to rockin'. 1. So again, I'll do a bridge in time for you. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Back to 8th notes, rocking on the solo section, just regular, you know, Chuck Berry stuff. Back to the line. Now, he walks up. He actually plays single notes on this part. You'll hear. All right, and then rocking and rolling. I'll play you that in tempo there. 2, 3, 4. And that's that. Then there's one more verse. And on the last verse, just keep rocking. Play that figure one more time. Rock out. And then on the very end, he's going to play the lines. And again, it's more than likely overdub. I'm just putting it all together so you can have 3 guitar parts that make sense. And this is part 2. The very first time he plays this riff, he catches up. He kind of makes a mistake and plays. He plays this. I'll do it slow. And then, so the very first one is 1. And then all the rest of them are. And those are all the parts. So if you put part 1 and part 2 together, you have a nice rhythm section for back in the U.S.S.R. This third part I'm calling the lead guitar part sounds like it was mostly played by Paul, but some of the overdub sounds like it could be George, but we're just going to call this the lead guitar part. And since most of it would be attributed to Paul, he would have been playing his Esquire, which is kind of like a Telecaster with just one pickup. And I'm going through my deluxe and just overdriving the living daylights out of it with a pedal. So first thing you hear is just two notes, and it's a lick that was cut off and they used, and it's just two C's, a C on the 8th fret of the E string and a C on the 5th fret of the G string, and just kind of bend that second part, fat. Then as the build-up goes, dun 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 dun, two unison E's, dun 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 dun, and then nothing from the lead guitar until the build-up from A to C to D. And that line goes like this. Now, of note is that first time, and the only time happens, there's a double stop. You hear a and an E. G, F sharp, and then C to C sharp in the two 16-note triplets. So, then move it up a minor third, and you're playing off of C, but just 16th notes, even though the other guitar is only playing half notes there. And then, 8th notes. And then up to D with the 3 16th note triplets. So again, slowly. Back in the U.S.S.R. Da 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 da, and then the build-up is just a D to D sharp to E. Second verse doesn't play, and the lead guitar doesn't play again until the walk up again. Same thing, but just one note this time. The U.S.S.R. Now, right here, there's another chord that has to be an overdub because it's so clean, and the chord would be, if I'll turn this down, the chord would be a G, add 9. This chord, and it's all on the upbeat. It's U.S.S.R. You know that part. That's the chord, and it's an overdub because it's so clean. Or if you can quickly turn your volume down, well then you're a magician. Okay, now on this part, to me this sounds like something George would have done. And you play a D7 like this, down to an A7. Then you're gonna walk down D7, D flat 7, C7, and then 8th notes. All right, so let me do the whole thing. I do it in time. Help me out, Ringo. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then no lead guitar part right there. Sounds like George to me, but we'll never know for sure. And then the solo, which to me sounds like Paul, because it's the kind of nervous, right in your face solo that Paul would play. And of course the solo goes like this. So slowly what that is, you on the B string, 13th fret, bend it up a whole step, and you bend and play it. Bend again, bend again. Hit it to release it. That's all on that same 13th fret of the B string. Bend the 15th fret up, 14th fret of the G string, 14th fret of the G string, back to bending 13th fret of the B string. Release it, 15th of the B string. And then this little line down. See that? Just. back to the build-up line. Back to the U.S.S.R. Bridge number 2. Again, to me sounds like George. Just D7. And then, so on the A7, you add the G the first time, get rid of it, walk down again, doesn't anticipate it. Remember, the first time went, this time it goes, slides into from like a power chord, E flat power chord to E, and he stops. And then on verse 3, there's that real fast picking thing. If you would listen to it in the key of G, it sounds more like it's, and then he catches up. But for the most part, if you just play 16th notes, like a high A, 16th notes, it'll sound right. So just 16th, 1 in, a 2 in, a 3 in, a 4 in, and you'll make that sound. Then back to the build-up. Back in the U.S.S.R. Do. One more time. And then as the probably George Harrison lower part plays, Paul comes in a little late. He comes in on the second measure on the G. So instead of going, he starts on G. It's like 1, and then, and he's done. And you'll hear it better on the sound-alike, which I've done. Now for the sound-alike, I've got more of a guitar mix. I stuck the piano in there too, but I wanted you to hear how the 3 guitar parts fit together. So let's check that out. U.S.S.R. Been away so long I hardly knew the place. Gee, it's good to be back home. Leave it till tomorrow to unpack my case. Honey, disconnect the phone. I'm back in the U.S.S.R. You know how lucky you are, boy. Back in the U.S., back in the U.S., back in the U.S.S.R. Well, the Ukraine girls really knock me out. They leave the West behind. And Moscow girls make me scream and shout. That Georgia's always on my mind. Oh, come on! Hey, I'm back in the U.S.S.R. You know how lucky you are, boys. Back in the U.S.S.R. Well, the Ukraine girls really knock me out. They leave the West behind. And Moscow girls make me scream and shout. That Georgia's always on my mind. Oh, show me around your snowy mountain way down south. Take me to your daddy's farm. Let me hear your battle like it's ringing out. Come and keep your comrade warm. I'm back in the U.S.S.R. Yeah, you know how lucky you are, boy. Back in the U.S.S.R. Oh, let me tell you, honey. Hey, I'm back. I'm back in the U.S.S.R. Hey, it's so good to be home. Yeah, back in the U.S.S.R. Well, now you can clearly see how all those parts fit together. I suggest you learn each one of them, play along with my sound alike, and you'll get it just like the Beatles. If you'd like to drop me a line, please do so at mikepachelli.com, and that's where the charts and tabs are for all my video lessons. And if you would be so kind, please subscribe to this channel. So have fun playing this great old song, and until next time, I'm Mike Pachelli. Thanks for hanging out with me.